So the Primaris Ancient from Dark Imperium is finally back, but if you do want to pick him up, then unfortunately you're going to be paying through the nose. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today we're discussing the Heroes of the Chapter kit that came out alongside the Dark Angels releases yesterday. I was honestly a bit surprised as to just how quietly Games Workshop snuck this one out. There generally tends to be a bit of promotion on just about every kit that they release, but I don't think that they actually mentioned this on Warhammer Community at all. I'm not sure if it was because of the very high price that they were charging and they didn't want too much negative backlash. I guess the release does feel a little bit more opportunistic to me. The actual thing that you get in this Heroes of the Chapter box are these 10 miniatures on the left. It's basically a subsection of Dark Imperium made from one sprue. They show the sprue off on the right, and it's essentially this Primaris Ancient, who I must admit is really quite a cool model, and I really enjoyed making him from Dark Imperium. 2 fairly plain Primaris Lieutenants, and then 5 monopose bolt rifle intercessors that just happen to be on the same sprue, but I guess at least the numbers aren't too odd, so at least everything in this box can be fielded as its own unit. It is a bit of a weird combination of units though. 2 minor HQ characters that are the same aside from a bit of war gear, 1 elite character, and 1 small squad of absolutely basic troops. Not too bad for fleshing out an army with a fairly generalist approach of different units, but I think it's a rare person who'd actually say, yes, I want literally every single one of these to add to my Space Marine army. They were all part of the plan. Now this Heroes of the Chapter box is quite expensive, as I mentioned. It's on sale for Games Workshop for £45 or $75 US. And it's packaged this way because this was the way that the sprue was in Dark Imperium, and unless Games Workshop invests in making an entire different mould for Ancients, they can't just sell the individual model off the sprue, it has to be all of them lumped together. Now I think that this price is going to annoy people for a fair few different reasons. Firstly, Dark Imperium was such a good deal, but now this single sprue that was just one part of the Space Marine army that made up half the contents will cost you as much as the entire half of the Dark Imperium Space Marine box. For twice the price of this, you get significantly more Space Marines, the hardback core rulebook, and an equivalent amount of Death Guard as well. It makes this sprue just look absolutely terrible value by comparison. Next up, it's also been heavily reduced in Warhammer Conquest as well, that weekly magazine that had some insanely good deals for Space Marines, and you could get these guys in one single issue for just £8. I'll admit that this was one of the very best deals in a magazine that was full of great deals, and I never managed to get my hands on this one myself, seeing as it sold out so quickly. But it really just doubles down on making this an incredibly painful pickup, as in theory you could have bought it for less than 1/5 of the price in a different format that Games Workshop sold it a while back. If Warhammer Conquest ever does make an appearance in the US, I'd certainly be ready for this issue. Definitely a far more economical way to get your hands on this guy. Next, it's a bit painful because the sprues are all monopose, the intercessors you get don't have any options in terms of sergeant weapons or different bolt rifles, and there aren't any different options on the lieutenant, and the lieutenants themselves are really quite plain. Without a snazzy paint job, they're not really all that easy to distinguish from your rank and file intercessor sergeants. Finally, a lot of people would want to pick up this Ancient, and those people might not necessarily want any more grunt intercessors or any further Primaris lieutenants, of which many people would have had an absolute ton of by now. Having to pay for all these additional models that you might not want is no incentive to picking up the kit. Despite all of this, they still have bumped the price up a fair amount, just because they tend to sell characters at a premium, and technically this does contain 3 character models. I would say that if you are just looking to get points of Space Marines on the table, this kit isn't absolutely terrible in terms of money per points, again just because those lieutenants and the Ancient will cost you quite a lot of points in game. It is only £10 more than a standard squad of intercessors, and the characters will eat up a bit more of a chunk of the army. However, if you really are just looking to get points on the table for a bit less money, I'd be a lot more tempted to kit bash some lieutenants out of some standard intercessors. As I said, they really look quite plain, just add a fancy sword, a bigger base, and a bit more bling to a standard intercessor, and you've got an instant custom Primaris lieutenant that won't be too different from these guys. So overall, I can't really see this release being very popular among people. Sure, they've made the Ancient available again, but bundled with a whole load of things that you don't really want, and also having to pay a reasonably high price for them. If they'd made this kit either significantly cheaper, or just released him on his own with a new mould, I suspect they'd be selling a lot more of him. I still don't think it's necessarily the worst pickup in the world, if we are comparing to other Games Workshop character releases, but it's just massively galling that these guys were so cheap before, and now they've got so expensive. So let me know your thoughts on the kit down in the comments below. I'd certainly be interested if any of you are thinking about picking it up, and your reasoning for doing so. I guess it's not all that relevant for me anyway, seeing as I've already got an Ancient from Dark Imperium. If you've enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, where we'll certainly have more like this covering Games Workshop's new releases. as well as our regularly scheduled tactics content. Finally, if you have been enjoying the videos and would like to help support the channel, I'd just like to mention that I do have a Patreon page which you can find down in the video description. Channel patrons do get a bunch of benefits, such as seeing certain videos early and regular entry to the channel's prize giveaways, which happen at the start of each month. Feel free to check it out down on the link in the video description below. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.